Hey everyone, and welcome to another video in the Master Data Management in SQL series. My name is Elric, and in this video we're going to create a procedure to create all the functions that we need to get our taxonomy IDs, and this will result in about 4 functions per subject. Normally we can't achieve this level of automation in the system like AdventureWorks or Wide World importers because of the lack of consistency in the model itself, but in this model we can. 2 things have changed since our last day, this being the start of day 4. 1, I downloaded and installed a copy of SQL Complete by DevArt, and that'll make more sense as we get into the how we're going to use the procedures we did in the last day. And 2 is I actually have someone with me, it's going to do some pair programming with me to try to reduce the amount of mistakes I have and allow me to focus on coding, and he can give more insight into what's happening or ask questions. Make things more interesting rather than me just coding. So his name is Steve.
Hello world.
So I'm going to get started. You can follow along if you'd like or just watch. Either or, let's have some fun. So the functions are meant to replace our where-in chains. And I'm going to open up just one of the finders that we've created, because we're going to be creating 9 different procedures to create these functions for us, just like we created 3 different procedures for the change management. I'm just going to take this where-in chain and create a new function for the base of our script. So there's really a variation on a theme. I'm going to name these FNC for function, taxonomy for the larger area, so they're all grouped together. And then we will have the subject name followed by something else. In this case, we'll start with base. Actually, get base ID. And then we'll do standard because these are going to take specific parameters. And for the base, let me just paste my code down here. The base is going to take in all the key names from our chain. So we will have the base ID. Not. We have the base key name. Type, family, class. The type, the family, and the class. So those will be our incoming, and our outgoing will be the type ID that we need. Actually, I can highlight this piece and replace mute that. All right. So get the ID that we are looking for. This will also, I'll probably just do the same replace. going to make sure we're calling the correct view, because we have the views created. Subject name, type ID in, subject name, type ID.
Why subject name, subject name?
So in the view that we created a system unique name. So when you think subject name, type ID, let's say we're in the dataset table, and how that would read would be dataset type ID. So essentially that means you're in the dataset table looking for the dataset type ID, and once you achieve the dataset type ID in the dataset type table, it would just be dataset type ID. And this allows us to create, like, if I were to select star from, or create view everything as select star from, and just comma delimited a list of tables from my dataset table, we would not get the ambiguous error. They would all be system unique from our base or select.
Yeah, because normally I'm expecting something like subject name and then a different form of identifier, like right there, as opposed to subject name type.
Right. But as we are in the type, the type. Well, because our subject name doesn't have the taxonomy involved, that's why we're up here. It's just the base.
Okay.
And we're going to add it, because each of these functions are going to get smaller and smaller. We're going to take the top out and just get the type ID, and then get the family ID, etc. So the first one we create is usually the longest. And I'm using these off of subjects because each subject is going to get a different set of these. So dataset ID is the dataset ID from dataset select. Dataset key name equals dataset key name, incoming parameter. Dataset type ID in select dataset type ID from dataset type select, where dataset type key name. Be the incoming type key name, and dataset type dataset family ID in dataset family ID from the dataset family select, where the dataset family key name equals dataset family key name, and the dataset class ID in select the dataset class ID from the dataset class select, where dataset class key name is in our incoming parameter.
Dilly.
But there are a couple other things that we want to do to really enhance our system. And that would be the subject name ID cleanse to. So as we come into any of these procedures, not only do we want the type ID, usually just do that. We want the cleansable flag and the cleanse2 ID. Because after we get everything for our current type, we want to say if this is cleansable and the cleanse2 ID cleanse2 is not null, we want to want to get what we will reroute it to. So instead of the key name, it would be the ID equals the cleanse2. So if I make a mistake on a type, I'm going to call this, all over my system, I will be calling this function instead of these where-in chains. And what will happen is this will come in and it'll return me, let's say, SQL table base type ID. But then I made mistakes and I really don't want to go through hundreds of procedures to redo my key name structure. I can just enable the cleansable flag and give it a new type ID. And when my system fires, the next time it tries to grab a type ID through the function, it'll come down here, realize, hey, this is cleansable, and hey, you have a cleanse2 ID, so let's readjust what we will be returning before we return it.
This, I think, is one of the more brilliant aspects of this system. That cleansable flag is truly amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
And it's simplistic, and that's one of the things I love about it.
So, just like every other automation, this will be our incoming parameter. We're going to base this on subject. We're going to slowly move everything to subject so we can enter in a subject and it will know these are the tables I have to create, these are the views I have to create, the procedures and the functions I have to create, go create them. So we sit at a meeting and just enter in rows, press a button, and our system's ready to start being developed on. So then, that means with the incoming subject ID, we'll need the type ID from that. Actually, no, we just need the subject name from that. And then our base and our execute.
Now, I know how you did that, and I see it throughout your videos, but there's a lot of people who don't understand the alt mouse, left mouse click trick for typing.
For the
Could you explain that?
multi-line typing?
Yeah.
What I do is I hold down Alt and Shift to kind of select something, and then it allows me to, it speeds up what I can do, and time is money. So I just kind of, in my mind, think about what's common between all of my variables, and then start typing them out. So same with
on multiple lines.
Yeah,
that way you can get 20 declare statements done.
Yeah, I think, I'm gonna need this chunk of things, and when later on in this day we'll refactor some of our code to use our new procedures, and you'll see why I wanted to use something like Redgate or DevArts SQL Complete, is because we're going to be alt selecting these procedure parameters and then pasting them to declare them and pasting them on the other side of, it's just going to be a lot of alt selects, and if we didn't do that, then these videos would be insanely long. So then, let's just say I believe I have subject 1, which is subject. I will just declare this up here, and this is a pretty simple replace. So you only have one thing. Did I even get my subject name?
Yeah, you declared it first.
I didn't get it though.
Doesn't initialize variables happen above?
Yeah. That's why you're here. So the wiki doesn't. So the wiki makes sense. And let's see if we can print this out and actually run it. Oh, I did miss my if exists check. Oh.
Well, no wonder you missed it. It's not there.
Yeah. Miss my commas also. You get my comments right. I forget my other things. I called this ActionFlag since all of our stuff, that means I have to declare it too.
So you could change that to a drop or alter.
Yeah. Well, CreateAlter.
Yeah.
And then since everything is in interface, let's do routines. So much for this right now. So if one, it exists, therefore alter. And I just have to add one more. Exists, alter, else, create.
Did you declare the action flag?
Yeah, at the top.
No, didn't see it.
So it looks pretty good. Got our comments in there, so it'll show up on the wiki. it worked. And one more time, we got an alter, so that'll work. Which means we can just execute this, and this will be our first of 8. PRC.
Why 8?
Because first one we'll be using to get the data, using dataset as an example. The first one will send in a class family type dataset key name, and we'll get a dataset ID back. The next one will be for a dataset type. Next one will be for a dataset family to be returned. So
Class.
yeah, but then we have to repeat that process because we have realms in our relationship, and what you'll learn later on this today, the domain and shared or the shared attribute shape. I want to do CFT instead of RCFT. This will be base create. So copy this, paste it, and move my ID up.
Pardon me.
So, boom, one down. Then it kind of gets easier, where we just say, all right, don't need the top level. This is the type ID. We're going to access the top level. We need these, but we can get rid of the top level again, because that's where actually should grab that whole thing. Type, family, class. And we just make sure our types. This is the exact same pattern. Too fast to check code. We gotta run it and see if it works.
Yeah.
Learned my lesson not to replace base, like database. Object, function, type. Just set it a 1 for subject. And we'll double check. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's the same pattern over and over. So now we drop 1. And I believe faster. Yep. Number 2. There we go. And lastly, for the shape, the class. And what this also allows you to do is clean at any level. So if you have, I hit copy. If you wanted to clean a class, so you reordered your classes and give them new families and everything, and you had a procedure that just grabs classes, you can clean that individually or independent of the other things. Actually, I think I can do this now.
I was wondering why you didn't do that before, but
It's too much red text. Like I'm
that's a valid point.
kind of worried.
Scroll down.
Thank you. There we go.
Love it.
Yeah, wait till we run all the subjects and they just so now we essentially have to repeat the same thing, but I'm going to try this differently. I'm going to generate scripts for these functions that we created, so we can just go down the list, because there are only so many things that we have to change, because they'll be the same names essentially.
What aspect of the name is going to change?
The names will remain the same, but we're going to be adding realms.
Okay.
So all these will remain the same. We're taking away the
All
base.
these will remain
Yeah.
the same.
And then I delete one. Yeah. So I take that back. When we look at realms, we're not going to get a base ID. So actually, let me just remove. Think about this. So I'm going to remove the base ID completely and start at the class. Oh, I totally generated the wrong thing. That's cool. Meant to get the create procedures. So CFT will actually turn into RCFT. And base will become realm. So a shared attribute doesn't have a table, an untyped table. A shared attribute has a realm class family type, and then there are other tables that are created to join a domain to a shared attribute. So you'll never want to get that specific thing, shared attribute being something like name. You'll never want to grab one single record. You want to say, oh, I'm looking for a name type of first name under this specific people. Realm.
Before you hit F5. And all of your other, pardon me, in all of your other videos, you've been a stickler for formatting, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. Damn. There we go.
I try to keep these videos under an hour. And yeah, you're right. I have not been as
well. Formatting is assuredly one of the more important aspects of development, specifically because 4 to 5 years you may not be the individual who's going to be reading this.
That is true. Yeah, help reduce tribal knowledge, just like, you know, going back and figuring out why, you know, how best to comment this thing, so we can put on a wiki free, open source, not a paid third-party tool, will rip directly from our code, and it forces people in the business to follow a pattern. So you kind of create a like SOP, a standard operating procedure for coding. Now that I'm in the class, I'm actually adding things. So I'm adding the realm to the class because the realm will be above the class at this point. So I'm going to copy this section, bring it down. We're essentially working on 4 procedures right now. And subject name, class, subject name, realm ID, and dataset class, dataset realm ID, in dataset realm ID. There we go. So nothing else changes really in our other, just our base, because our base becomes our new top level, which class used to be in a CFT shape. But base became our new realm, or became a realm, the topmost in the taxonomy. Now we just have to account for it in our class family type. And everything else, we want it to remain the same. We don't want to change the function name, really. I'll come back. I'll edit those comments. Let's finish this out. Finish the comments. Says it was said completed. Let's see. Let's full on run it and see what happens. That'll work. Alright, I have a snippet. I'm not gonna set up DB Forge for this yet. Essentially, we want the top level procedure. Yeah, we want a top level procedure to make our code look better, where all we need is the subject ID incoming. So we're gonna add some logic. Hey, if your subject type is RCFT, here's your path, execute this top level procedure. If it's CFT, go to this path. Get rid of those. Shift R. Bam.
Thank you. I didn't want to have to say anything.
And then it should be as easy as So in our cursor, just to create all of the functions, subject type ID, subject type key name, because we use key names in code. This one should update. So again, I'm calling from a system unique view, so it's the subject table structure, and I'm looking for the subject type ID. It's a little weird trying to think about it in those terms, but that's some of the things we have to do to create that consistent environment, that this is where it belongs, this is where it's from.
Well, that's the thing about this system. If you look at any singular small piece of it, it barely makes any sense. But when you look at the whole thing holistically, as a single, in a way, an organism, it all makes sense. Except for that RSTS.
That is DB Forge. When I use aliases, you copy the whole object, period. So when you're looking at a select statement, you know exactly where it's from, and it's not the name part that Microsoft has been talking about deprecating for a very long time now, and they still haven't. But yeah, so subject type key name, because this is inside the cursor, null it out, get the key name, and because I know where we'll be going with this, let me refresh. Just my top level procedure. And these two shapes we have not talked about yet, but we will be. Alrighty, moment of truth. I like when we have nothing. And have all the things.
It's absolutely beautiful when you do a whole bunch of typing and you hit F5 for the first time and you see that absolutely beautiful commands completed successfully.
Yeah. So I thought cursors were supposed to be slow and everything, like all this bad reputation.
Cursors, because of some issues in 2005 and SQL Server 6.5 have garnered a really terrible reputation, but they're amazingly simple, they're amazingly fast if you use them properly.
And that's what we do. So that is it for creating these functions. Just to give a short demo, I don't know where we are at for time, but I'll go back into that database finder tool. And all of this code that we had here now becomes taxonomy, get base ID, because we're looking for the system. And it would be, oh man, I forgot. It's base first. Base, type, family, class. So, nope. It is. Dang it. Forgot already.
And here I was so appreciative.
Yep. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. That's all it was. It's calling the wrong thing. Yeah.
Ah!
Almost did it again. So, hundreds of code, or hundreds of lines of code that we've written in all of these. Videos start to get reduced to more simple, readable things. Like maybe this order is wrong. We're gonna have to add a tenant to it, but we don't have a tenant set up. That's a domain, our first domain. So we're gonna have to add a tenant ID to this to make sure that we can isolate every client or every system. But maybe it makes sense if we reverse the order. Like that, those are the questions we have now. Not how am I going to get this, but how should I present this as readable code? Get the system ID. What system? The owner class, the main family and type, and the system marked version 1. That's what you should get. So that's where our code readability comes into play. Just a benefit, not only from being able to create all these different functions to use, but to simplify our code and to make it more readable, to make one point of contact to get a specific thing that we can edit. We can edit this function and affect the entire system.
A lot of organizations don't recognize that simplistic formatting and coding in this way does save considerable. I mean, when you consider our paychecks, that's considerable amount of money in just saving an hour of trying to figure out some legacy code.
Yep. That tribal knowledge. See, even here, so we have a family. So we just declare our family and get our, let's see, database family ID equals database. There we go. And the family would take a class. Should be at the end. The family. So that's why we made multiple versions of the same, thing, because we don't know at what point, when do we need the ID? Well, we need all the types in this family. So we just simplify it. So yeah, that is our function piece. I think we're almost out of the system. You got to witness how we create our functions auto-magically and use them. And in our next video, I'll be covering error handling, so we can toggle on and off what our procedures are sent and save the errors for these procedures. So thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Elric.
I'm Steve.
And we will see you next time. Have a good one.